Hello, Nathan.
Hello, Sam.
We're back. I didn't
We're
think we'd be
back,
back,
baby.
but we're back.
Well, we're back for a mid-year. Oh no, mid-season. What is
Mid-off
this?
season.
No, mid-off season chat.
Mid-off. That's a cricket field. Yep.
Oh, mid-off.
Mid-off.
There you
Yeah,
go, mate. Of the cricket reference. Nice.
that's good. We're gonna have a chat about
What's happened
the
in the
trade
last
period,
month?
about the upcoming draft, what we think. Most of it's going to be just around what we reckon. So
Well, we
nothing
can't
here
tell
is
you what.
gospel. So
We can't tell you what the Essendon Football Club's actually doing.
no, I don't have jackets on speed dial anymore.
No, it's the off-season. They don't talk to us during the off-season, Sam.
No. You do have a picture of the great man on your screen, though.
You love the jackets.
At least 3 jackets on, which is controversial. So I thought we'd just start by going through our changes so far, as of recording. So a couple of retirees we already know about: Ambrose, Hooker, and Mosquito is actually classified as retired on the AFL website. And then delistings of Ned Cahill, Lockie Johnson, and Zaharakis. Again, that's just how it's classified on the AFL website. And now, more recently, Marty Gleeson. Which, on a personal note, is rather unfortunate. I did like the Marty Party, but
we all love the Marty
it's a sign
Party,
of the times.
Yeah.
We've got a plethora of sort of medium tall.
And he just never got back from that ankle injury.
No. And he's been overtaken by the likes of Ridley and some others.
Yep.
So there's only one player left now that can be delisted, and that is Dylan Clark. And I would venture a guess in that we're looking at maybe some delisted free agents before we make a final call on what he's doing. Might even be a scenario where he gets delisted but picked up as a rookie.
Yeah, and I guess we'll talk about this a bit more in detail later. But are we looking to upgrade him to some degree?
Definitely. That is our changes.
Well, they're the outs.
Well, they're the outs, yes. Sorry, not the changes. They're the outs.
Let's have a talk about the in.
We should talk about the in. Yeah, singular. Just one.
And have you ever known a trade period to be so quiet for us? I know we didn't do anything, but we still made the main story. Yeah, we didn't even want to do anything. We were still like, oh, look, here's a pick. And, by all reading it after the reports, it was never really going to happen.
No, and I've got a few quotes from Dodoro on that, but we'll talk about Jack Kelly first.
Yep.
First thing I want to bring up is the SEN summary of this man. So it astounds me that some people in the media maybe just don't do their research, don't do whatever. So Matt Rendell, which might tell you all you need to know. I've seen a bit of stuff about him not being the cleverest tool in the shed.
So off the mark.
Coming from the bloke that just said cleverest. I'm pretty sure that's not a word. Cleverest isn't a word. Anyway, they got Jake Kelly and that was it. I'm not so sure he plays in their best team.
Yep.
Now, I'm not sure who said it. Oh, it was Dodoro, actually. Good segue. I wrote down some notes when he was being interviewed on Trade Radio. Basically said, we targeted Jake Kelly. We wanted to fill an area that was of concern, and that was shutting down small forwards. So the assumption that he's not in our best team next year from round one is pretty funny.
He's clearly been brought in to deal with the fact that in 4 games, maybe 5 this year, we let I'm going to call him a medium to small forward.
Well, I have a number for you here.
There you go.
I have a stat. So that 5 times in 2021, a player kicked 4 or more goals against us. 3 of those 5 were less than 180 centimetres tall.
Oh, yeah. The interesting thing about Jake Kelly, too, is that he's like 190, but he really deals with these small forwards very well.
Play small, yeah.
Play small. It's always one of those funny expressions, isn't it?
Like, do you see him
running really low? Crouching, like running with their...
Well, Ridley's done it. Ridley's done it on the small.
Just a funny expression. Well. Plays really small.
He plays small. He can play tall, but he can play small.
Yeah, can he play tall? But can he play medium?
So you've got some stats around his one-on-one work, I believe.
Well, this year, for example, I mean, this is the concept that I can see why Essendon have drafted him. To be honest, he was never someone I took a lot of notice of because he's that sort of player. I
haven't heard of him, to be fair.
I'd heard of him because he's old man. But so for example, he's one-on-ones, he's contested one-on-ones where he had 65 one-on-ones and he lost 11. So he 16% is his win-loss ratio. Whereas to put that in perspective, Jordan Ridley's at about 14.5 and Jake Kelly's at about 17. So he's a very similar. These are the top sort of elite. These are the top 1%ers of guys in contested football.
And you were saying the norm is around 20% loss.
Yeah, well, if you go and have a look at his contested defensive one-on-ones in the AFL stat things are shown as elite. So, and I think elite is the 1 to 5% bracket, isn't it, in the AFL of that skill?
It's the best.
So he's also shows elite in spoils, and he's also interested in disposal efficiency is elite in that too. Because I think a part of that is the kicks he takes. Being a defender, they do get to probably,
defenders normally have the higher percentage.
Yeah. And he's a smart defender in that he doesn't take kicks that he can't make. He takes the kicks he can make.
Yeah. So I think
they're all.
Sorry.
There you go.
I was going to say the biggest thing you can take from him is that we've plugged a gap where we need a defender that can play on small forwards. 1.
Yep.
2, at 190, there's nothing to say he can't play on some of the medium, getting towards taller forwards. Not too tall, obviously. But what it also does is free up Ridley. Ridley doesn't really have to play a lockdown as much.
That's the massive thing, I think. The thing that we don't know what effect it'll have on the club. In that, if Ridley's free now to be a lever, we'll call it a lever-like role, like loose defender, play off a weaker forward and come off and take the mark, intercept and kick and control the ball. That's a big...
No better team to compare to than Melbourne right now.
Well, you've got to compare yourself to the best.
Yes.
So I think it's great. Well, the interesting thing is, I think, and it's been interesting to see some people floating around with their Essendon best 22 is where Jake, whose spot Jake is taking.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where we've got some probably really interesting conversation going on.
I think that's probably one of the first sort of podcasts we might do early-ish next year will be to talk about what we see our best 22 being after the draft, when we get a bit of a sense of who's injured, who's fit, and all that sort of stuff.
How pre-season's going for everyone, yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's all for us in the trade period. Obviously, we better talk about Bobby Hill just for a minute. Yeah. He was an interesting one. There was so many different rumours, different bits of information flying around about him and how that came about. I go back to that sort of quote or the conversation Dodoro had with AFL Trade Radio after trade period had finished.
Yeah.
Basically saying that Hill's a contracted player. We respect the GWS decision to not trade him. Jason, being their footy boss at GWS, was honest and upfront that he didn't want to entertain trading Bobby. Bobby will be fine. He's a resilient, tough kid. He'll go back and have a great year next year, and we wish him all the best. So, media would have you believe there's a lot of animosity between Dodoro and McCartney.
Doesn't seem like
and that also Bobby Hill was going to be shattered and not come back. I'm more inclined to believe an Essendon person before I believe the media.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they can't say certain things in the media. That's understandable. But storm in a teacup, really. He was a contracted player. Doesn't seem like we were ever going to get him. I'm glad we didn't get him for the future second. That was probably a little bit too much.
And we weren't really in a situation to offer a lot because, at the moment we have pick 11 and then I think the next one's 51, I think.
Yeah.
So, and from my understanding, we'll talk about this a bit later again, but that we are trying to deal with getting some better picks. And that's the talk is that we might offering up our future first round of next year to get into, I don't know, high first, low second round. I'm not sure. That's a guess. So most of our stuff is tied up there. So we don't have this perfect second round or even something brilliant to offer them.
Well, that's right. We didn't have the second round this year. We were never going to offer pick 11, and obviously they turned down a future second, so 51.
Yeah, and they have every right to do that. They're from their perspective, they've got no green for 6 weeks starting the year. They've just saw Finlayson leave. I think there was another forward that wasn't going to play. So they needed Bobby Hill. Bobby Hill's going to be actually important to them come round one.
And there was a bit around them getting a replacement. Obviously, there was a confirmed, I believe, trade offer between Hawthorn and GWS to get Luke Bruce. Luke Bruce didn't want to go.
Yep.
So, fair enough. I fully support the fact that contracts are there to protect the club.
Was Wingard spoken about too?
Yeah, it was more Bruce.
He didn't want to go either.
Formal offer.
All right, yep.
Contracts are there to protect your player and to protect your club. So if it was a contracted player at Essendon we were talking about, we'd be sitting there going, stick it to him. Jackets.
And my call too. I don't reckon it'll happen next year either.
No, I don't think.
We don't. The next year, not to jump too far ahead, but the Davey twins will be somewhere on our radar. One of them is a half forward / midfielder. The other one is more of a half forward / sort of deep forward. So I think if we, only assuming, I don't know again, if we go after them, that'll cover
reasonable sort of guess that we will.
Yeah.
We've got a few
one of
father
them,
sons
I reckon, will
up.
go top 20 at the moment. There's talk. Alwyn Jr. I think he's got it highly rated. So,
and there's a Wanganeen coming. There's a Mercedes that we can pick up this year, I believe, but we're not sure if we will.
There's a Wanganeen this year, Tex and Wanganeen Malira. So I don't know, for creative small forwards, I think
it depends on what happens with Waller, because that's at the moment a little bit of an unknown around his stuff.
And this is probably to another conversation, but it's obviously a weakness that we see coming in our list.
Well, it's certainly depth. If Waller's not in that side, Devon Smith played that role really well against Collingwood.
Snelling can do a bit of it, but he's been pushed more into the midfield.
We're losing him out of the midfield. That's right.
Yep.
We virtually, our forward line, obviously, in the final was awful. We didn't score a goal for a half of football.
But we saw Clark doing it for some games too towards the end of the year. He kicked it a couple of games, but he's not good enough to do it.
They're just not the guys you want. You want a quick
he's not a
hand to foot.
He's not a small forward. He's not a clever, like the guys like Buick and Moorcroft and guys like that we've had in our past that could kick 40 or 50 goals in a year.
Well, again, you go back and compare it to the best in the competition. I was amazed when you told me this. Keziah Pickett kicked 40 goals this year. And
he's only in his second year, and he even drafted this year.
I know he's quick and he's pressure, and he scared me when we played Melbourne, but I didn't realise he actually had that effect on the scoreboard.
Sausage rolls as well.
So that's the kind of player I want. He's quick, high pressure. I mean, Waller is that when he's playing and he's playing well.
Mm-hmm. And he had kicked 30 odd goals by about the halfway mark. It's just whatever happened in the second half. His form fell, and I don't know, fitness and I think a mental issue. So it all just crumbled.
That's the concern. You look at the depth and go, well, Dev Smith, yes, he played the role really well, but he's not.
But we don't have any depth.
He's not that kind of small forward.
Yep. So if Tiffin Woody goes out injured again, there's no one that we've got. I mean, the depth is young Hurd. He played some good VFL. Yeah, depth.
Probably a bit premature.
Yeah. He played some good VFL as a forward, small forward. So,
but again, if a kid can come in and just play a role and tackle and chase and harass, I'm all for it.
He needs to put on about another 10 kilos.
Yeah, he needs a bit on him. That's probably a nice little smooth segue. That's my word. Into
smooth segue
into some delisted free agents.
Yep,
we've been keeping an eye on it as you do.
All of us do. I'm sure.
Now, again, this is just our opinions. There are probably going to be some players we don't think about that you might have. We're probably going to talk about one or two that you might not think is a good idea. It's just a chat.
We're just going to say names. I don't think the Essendon Football Club's listening to us and go, "Oh yeah, definitely him." It's just us.
If you are from the Essendon Football Club and you are listening, then hit me up.
Can you get me better seats at Marvel? I'm not happy with them.
Nathan's just upgraded to reserve seats, so he's a bit into it at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not really. I'm not really. Anyway, we won't.
He's long-time member, just not home reserved.
I'm a country boy. I don't like going to this.
Country boy. I'm a country boy. I go to friggin' 10 games a year. Come on.
You're not a country boy.
I live like half an hour away from you. You can't.
Yeah, but where did you? No, I'm not going into this right now.
Yeah, okay.
You're not a country boy. Did you ever have a ute?
Like, for me to... No, move on. We're talking about football. We're talking about footy here. The first name we're going to throw up is Charlie Constable. Not a small forward as such.
No.
Well, not a small forward at all because he's 191 centimetres.
Pretty tall midfielder.
Now, I think this was the one, the wording from Geelong was more about giving him an opportunity to go somewhere else.
Yep, because no one wanted to actually use a draft pick on him.
Geelong exclusively play 30-year-olds.
So he's what?
It is interesting that we...
23?
Sorry, I'll tell you that in a second.
No, he's 22, 23. He's 192 centimetres, 86. So physically...
23 in May.
Perfect. So he's, ticks a lot of boxes there.
He is.
It's not just about how you look.
We talked about Clark, and Clark's a perfect example. Again, only an example, not just attacking him. If you're going to look at where we need to improve, it is probably depth all across the board, to be fair.
Yep.
In the midfield is one of those places. And if you're going to look at Constable, who may be a good player. We don't really know because he hasn't had the opportunity at Geelong. Then he's worth a risk. He's worth a punt to say, right, I will give you the 1 year deal and then see how he goes. And if he ends up being a 20 to 25 touch player, can kick a goal. He kicked, if I can find my numbers, he kicked 5 goals from 7 games in 2019. So we, get forward a little bit. Then it might just be an upgrade.
Well, he averaged, I think, 21 touches from something like 7 games or something in 19. He had, I don't think he's been given much of an opportunity. I don't think it's been injury or anything. It's just that Geelong. Geelong depth. Like if you think of their strength, it is one of their strengths. He's not going to drop. They're not going to get Dangerfield out of the midfield, Dunkley out of the midfield, Selwood, all those very good players they have in the midfield.
We'll just go back to Dunkley.
Not Dunkley, Duncan.
Duncan, thank you.
Sorry.
I couldn't think of his name.
Yeah,
it wasn't Dunkley, but I couldn't remember what it was.
Yeah, and what's the other one? He's good and his brother's not.
Guthrie.
Yeah, Guthrie. Yeah, so they've got a plethora of midfielders that this kid's just can't get a go. Now, I don't know how really good he is. I know he's in the VFL in the last 4 games. He averaged 30-something touches. So he obviously can find the footy at VFL level. He came second in their B and F this year.
VFL best and fairest.
Yeah. VFL best and fairest. So, I mean, he just sounds like I'm interested.
I'm interested too. And I think the only downside from an Essendon point of view might be that he knows he's not going to necessarily come in and get games with our midfield the way it is at the minute.
No.
And if there's another club that can say to him, yeah, you're probably going to play 15 or 16 games, then we're not probably at the front of the queue, but we are Essendon and we do have a bit of pull just from
That's
being
not necessarily true. If Langford gets injured, is this kid's a replacement for him? Is he better than...
but that's what I mean. He's coming in as depth. He's not coming in as a 22.
But is he better than Durham?
Probably with that. Well, we don't know. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But realistically, if you look at us, you think, I'm not getting midfield minutes as a 20...
You're not getting in front of Parrish or...
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah. So if he had a club
this kid might be
knocking,
a winger. I don't know enough about him.
I don't think he is.
Okay.
Anyway, we don't know everything, clearly. There's another time for a disclaimer. Interesting one. Secondly, and I'm going to save your one for last because it is just a bit controversial.
Fair enough.
And this is more on the small forward.
Needs basis.
Well, just having that small forward. And
yeah, well, it's a need. We have an issue.
Don't think he's an overly popular player with Essendon supporters, from what I've heard at games. But Jack Loney from the Saints. Delisted. 175 centimetres, 25 years old. Yep, 25. Gets a fair few shots at goal. Isn't fabulous at conversion.
He's a shocking converter of the ball.
But
shots at goal are important.
They are important, and he's little, he's quick. I think the biggest...
Can he play tall?
He can't play tall. He plays very small. The biggest criticism I've heard at games is he flops a bit too much. But hey, if we get a forward that can flop and get some free kicks, I'm quite happy with that. As long as he plays for my team.
He's above average in tackles inside 50 too.
Which is, if your forward's not kicking goals, that's the next best thing. Putting pressure on.
That's what you want a small forward to be doing, tackling.
Yeah, and you'll like this one actually.
Ooh.
Just in keeping with free kicks and maybe diving and making tackles and all that sort of stuff. In 2021, he played 11 games. He got 11 free kicks, 4. He gave away 1.
Oh, that's hello.
That's like the anti-Sean McKernan.
Yeah, that is the anti-Sean McKernan. He used to give away some free kicks.
That's pretty handy. And going back, 2020 he had 10 and 5. 2019 he had 21 free kicks for and 6 against. In 13 games of football.
Flop away, champ.
In 2018, 11 games, 10 free kicks. Sorry, 14 and 10. He was a bit shit that year. I thought it was 10 and 1.
I say flop away.
Anyway, that's beside the point. We just had an issue with Sean McKernan, didn't we?
He actually scores more behinds than goals on average a game.
Yeah. But if 90% of the battle, I guess, is getting shots at goal. And if you're good enough to get the shots, then you can work on the accuracy side of it, I guess. Yep. I'm sure St Kilda would have been trying to do that. But...
Yeah, of course. I'm sure they would have. But the ticks here are what we've just talked about. He's a small forward who pressures and tackles.
And that's the one you could look at and go, right,
to
1 year deal.
As a backup for Tip and Woody, he makes sense from that field. He might be told, look, you're not going to play every week, mate, but if you play well enough, you might hold your position. Who knows?
Well, there's a spot in your forward line for two of those players.
Yeah, 100%.
They could play.
And he's how old did you say he was? 24,
25? Just turned 25.
Still some good footy left in him.
He's one that's definitely worth the 1 year deal and just say, look, mate, we'll see how you go. And if he's great, then he gets another 2 years at the end of it. Pretty low risk, you'd think, and another situation where we could moneyball a little bit, like we've done with Nick Hind is a prime example. Output versus cost is massive. The last one, and I wanted to save this for last because...
You disclaimer. You want to put a disclaimer up?
Oh, no. All I've seen about this guy is that, in general, people don't want him. Again, we're all just nuffs, so whatever. Is Michael Gibbons from Carlton. He is 26 currently, 27 in May. So he's around that right sort of age, though.
And I can understand. I'm just throwing his name out there because I think, personally, Carlton have had him for 2 years or 3 years, something like that. And I think they've played him out of position for most of that. I can understand they got him in to play a small forward role, but they should have been using him as just a midfielder. He's dual best and fairest VFL winning midfielder. And he's elite in clearances when he gets a go at it. So again,
he's got
above averages in tackles and all that sort of stuff. You know, his disposals, he's good clearance, he's a good tackler, pressurer. You know, he kicks the ball well, disposes well. So, again, for me, I look at him and go, is he an upgrade on Clark? I think so. Clark will never win a best and fairest in the VFL, yet alone 2. So that's my thought. That's it.
Look, his stats aren't awful. He's got decent possession numbers versus sort of reasonable goals. And if you are going to hang one thing... He's been
played out of position.
Yeah, I know. If you are going to hang one thing on our midfield, it is that, apart from Stringer, they're not big goal scorers. Like, Zach Merritt isn't a great goal scorer. Darcy Parish can
10,
get forward.
Not good enough numbers, but...
So, you know, that's a little bit of a need, a goal-kicking mid, whether or not, you know, you can, 1, break into that midfield, then 2, do it. But as you say, it's all about upgrading your depth. If you upgrade your depth, you get better.
Yep, that's my theory. You got to look at the bottom 6 to 10 and you try and improve them all the time. You're also trying to bring in great players as well. But if you keep pushing up that bottom, and at the moment for me, it's the Clarks and probably Guelph you'll put down there too, and Ham.
Of the ones that were playing, yeah, absolutely.
Of the guys that are playing, for us to be a better team, they need to play less.
Yep.
Yep.
Now, there's sort of... That's it for my list of delisted friends.
I'm sure there are others, but they're the 3 or 4 we've...
Some other ones that raised eyebrows. Oscar Brownless from Geelong didn't seem to be awful at football. Again, one of best and fairest in the VFL.
Can I throw something out there from Geelong?
Sure.
Geelong have delisted or traded out their 1, 2, and 3, and something like 6, 7, and 10 out of their VFL best and fairest this year.
Yep. It's pretty bad.
Which I don't understand.
But yeah, anyway, Oscar... Sorry.
Excitingly, our number 1 was Nick Bryant in our VFL.
VFL best and fairest, yep.
And I think massive talent, I think.
Yes, you're a fan. He is your boy.
He's my boy.
Oscar Brownless, you know, seemed to be worth a look. That was about all the names that jumped out at me.
Oh, there's a couple. The Woodcock at Port Adelaide for me. I'm interested. He's a small forward. Never saw a lot of him though. Didn't get a lot of footy. And
great name, Boyd Woodcock.
Woodcock. Remember there was another Woodcock, I'm sure.
Melbourne?
Played over that way. Maybe anyway. And there was somebody else too from like maybe West Coast or something like that. Anyway, I'm sure better minds and better, you know, experts
obviously.
Our Essendon Football Club would be looking into these guys and making sure that, you know.
The last thing I will say that concerns me a little bit going into next year around, well, this is sort of segue into what we think we need from the draft. Yep. Not that I think we're going to draft a key forward, but Cale Hooker, obviously retired, kicked 33 goals, 24 which, if my maths hasn't let me down since I left school, is 57 scoring shots. And with Kale's set shots, I'm sure there might have been 1 or 2 or 3 out on the fulls.
63 technically he had shots at goal.
Okay, so 6 didn't score or out in the full.
They were out in the full or didn't make the distance.
It was a bit of a drive-by. Sorry, Kale. That's a lot of shots at goal to replace.
Exactly. That's
now, and with if Waller's out as well, he was about the same without looking at it.
Waller had, I can tell you that one, Anthony Waller had 52 shots at goal last year.
So much more accurate than Kale, I assume, because he kicked.
So between the two of them, it was 110, 115 sort of shots.
Yeah. So obviously Jones is coming back in.
Yep.
Wright is there, but playing a bit more ruck forward as well. Baldwin, we might see. So Baldwin could be the key one there, but you're asking a lot of a first-year player. To come in and do that. So
especially Paul Goes had 2 knees and hasn't played footy for he played like the 2 VFL games at the end of this year and probably hasn't played footy for a couple of years really.
Huge raps, but big question marks around him though.
Yeah, massive raps.
So I guess my point there really, it wouldn't surprise me if we were looking at some sort of key forward delisted free agent if there was one, again without looking, because we could be short at all.
Or I love that one, don't you? Or the other theory, which I guess could be, and after last year, is someone like Stewart going to come back forward because of Kelly's positioning? Not that they're the same player. I know that.
I didn't even get to put that one in there. Ironically, go back forward.
Go back forward.
Well,
or is there, like Francis, does Francis, I don't know. They made some interesting, we didn't expect Laverde and Stewart and probably Heppel to go back.
I think Hepp was expected to be on half.
Oh, Heppel, I wasn't. Yeah, maybe. So who knows what they've got planned for this year.
The issue with
Stewart, want Bryant to go forward. There's my...
Yeah, I know. You're a big fan of the 2 ruck, which I hope we see. I hope we see that in pre-season, them playing together.
Yep.
And then seeing how that operates, because clearly
it worked at Melbourne really well.
It can work. And Luke Jackson going into the ruck in that grand final in the third quarter was game-changing.
Yep, and if you look at Melbourne, the Premiers, they had Luke Jackson and Ben Brown forward.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure there were times when one of them was on the bench, but there probably would have been times when they were both forward too.
Not to mention Big and Max Gawn just taking the piss in a prelim kicking 5.
Yeah, so it worked for them. I'm not saying we copy everything, but I think
Brian's got to be the forward, because no disrespect to Sam Draper, kicking is not his strength.
No, exactly. But he can get down there and take a mark.
He can take a mark. That's the big thing.
He doesn't have to be. It's about percentage of time in position too. Like Bryant can go to the ruck and then go forward and then do a little bit of bench, whereas Draper goes to the ruck, to the bench, and a little bit forward.
Well, I think Draper's your ruck, your main ruck, essentially your number 1 ruckman, and then Brian is the forward relief ruck rather than Wright, and then Wright can maybe get more shots at goal, and it flows on. I'm all for it. I didn't know if Brian sort of had the physique or the...
Yeah, of course. But we're going to be a very young side next year. Like when you look at the guys that have gone out, those guys you mentioned, like Hooker, Gleeson, Zarakis, Ambrose, who else?
We're basically the anti-Geelong.
Well, they're all guys. I don't know. There's probably 700 or 800 games of experience just dropped out. And they're all the 28, 29, 30-year-olds. So I think Hurley will be the only 30-year-old at the start of next year.
And he's a massive unknown. He's even going to play.
And then I reckon Heppel might turn 30 next year or be the year after. Anyway.
Just do some quick Googling
Do some researching on that one.
Don't ask me how tall they are. Just ask me how old they are. Yes, he's 30 in May.
Yeah, so he'll be so we'll have 2 30-year-olds on our list, 30-plus-year-olds on our list.
Ben Rutten's only 38.
I'm older than him by a lot.
Even if he was there, it doesn't really...
He can play.
Our average age,
Come on, get out on the ground.
Chuck the sash on. The only other delisted free agent thing I want to talk about just for 2 seconds is Zaharakis not getting a gig anywhere else for now, which is interesting. He certainly seemed like he wanted to go again.
There's not a lot of teams looking for a small winger midfielder half-forward that
gets injured a lot, really, over the last couple of years. Zaka had one really good patch of form, I reckon, in 2020, and he kicked a lot of goals. He kicked 3 goals a couple of times in a row, and then got injured. He had his quad.
The old man quad.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, all right, we'll crack on to
the future.
To the future, the draft. What we think we
pick
might
11.
Look at.
We know that.
So pick 11 is about it. That's about all we really need to talk about. Again, going back to the Dodoro conversation with Trade Radio. And I rolled my eyes at this at the time. In terms of the draft, we're looking at drafting the best available player. Which, like, Nadoi to me, really. Like,
Nadoi.
What? Duh. We're certainly not going to pick the worst player. We've talked about it a little bit.
Yep.
That we're not really sure what we should be going after. We're pretty agreeable that we're not going after key position players. You might argue a key defender.
Bringing in another 18-year-old key tall. Like, how many 18, 19-year-olds can you have in that?
Well, that's
bracket?
the thing. The areas we're short in are the areas we've got kids.
We're talls.
Short or tall. Zach Reed, I guess, is the big one there. If I was to look at James Stewart and go, that might be a weak link in our back six, Zach Reed's the guy to come in and replace that, not a draftee. So,
100%.
We talked about a winger. We don't really have out-and-out winger, apart from Langford.
I think we've got ordinary wingers. I think Langford's very good, but on the other wing, I don't think Cox is up to it yet. I'm not saying the future
and
he
Cox
will be,
could be anything.
I still think he's a few years away from being a good player. Not saying that you draft a kid this year that's going to be good, but you're always looking to the future. You want an out-and-out winger. I want like
Angus Brayshaw.
Angus Brayshaw. I was going to go with
Australian winger Zach
Smith, who went from Hawthorn to Geelong. In his prime was a great winger.
Yep.
Who else?
Bailey Smith from the Dogs was, I guess.
Well, he's our forward. Anyway, we're looking for that.
That was one area we thought. There was another area, which I can't remember what it was. I thought we were talking about two. It's unfortunate.
For the small forwards.
Small forward, that's right. Because there's a small in the draft, Josh Rachel, is it?
Yeah, but
who is probably going to go ahead of pick 11, and realistically,
they've got him at pick 9. Cal Toomey is, I think, pretty much the go-to guy in this.
He's the go-to guy for draft. Essendon supporter, good bloke.
Yep, and he's very
very
good.
He knows what he's talking about.
The top 20 usually go the way he writes it.
Yeah.
One or two might swing around here and there.
He's factoring in the players, but then he's also factoring in the clubs. What the teams, pick. So
he's got Rochelle at pick 9.
Rochelle. That's a reference that
erotic woman's journey from Milan to Minsk.
20% of our. Not even that. That's probably generous.
Seinfeld. If you know Seinfeld, you'll get it.
Seinfeld, yeah, maybe a bit more.
Come on.
So he's available as a small forward,
we're going to get him.
But
he'll be
gone. Be lucky to get that. There was another guy with a really basic name.
Oh, we're a big fan of
good old basic name.
Johnson.
Yep. And you compare it to some of them. Jesus, that's boring almost.
Well, the other one. So we've got pick 11. Just to get.
Okay, you go. This is your area. Yep.
Oh, not really. So we've got pick 11, which will turn out to probably be something like pick 13 or 14.
But we know that there's going to be those two players that are going to go.
Yeah, that's right.
In Dacos and
the
other guy.
So if you look from 11 onwards, it goes, he's got Jaya Miss, which we love. Love Jaya Miss. Do you know what Jaya Miss's role is?
He's a forward and he doesn't miss.
He's a key forward and he doesn't miss. He loves to miss. The issue with him is he's from Perth and there's a couple of Perthlos. Freo and West Coast are in front of us. I reckon that they'd have a pretty good...
Well, when you're West Coast and you've got Josh Kennedy getting on and you've also got
even
Darling
Freo, who's their key forwards? So, seriously. Lodman, he wanted to leave this year, so I reckon they'll look at him.
Yeah.
There's Arlo Draper, who's South Australian too.
No relation to Sam.
Could be. He was over in South Australia. Didn't Draper come from South Australia?
I thought we looked into this. Okay. Don't quote me on that. I'm just talking shit.
And again, that Matthew Johnson, who's also Western Australian, so one of the WA clubs might pick before us and grab him. But I love about him, he's 192 centimetres, 80 kilos, which is a good chunk of an 18-year-old boy. Like, seriously. A tall midfielder. So I like that. And then I reckon the first pick that's looking at us is Nasiah Wangani Malira. Now, he's a wingman, silky smooth skills, beautiful by foot. Probably knock on him would be his frame. He's a light little bugger.
Great name though for Essendon.
Yeah. So he could be someone I think we might look at. And then there's a Josh Sin, who's another back sort of midfielder after that, and Tyler Sonsi, who's another midfielder. And then after that, I don't know, to be honest. I know Josh Goda gets a lot of people floating, but he's listed to go at pick 18, also 190 centimetres, 79 kilos, so a good chunk of lad.
It's a bit hard when you get there because you think you're not going to take a guy that sort of area around 13, potentially.
Yeah, so anyway, greater minds will make these decisions, as we obviously say. But
we have pretty great minds, though.
But the thing I'm more interested in, I think, because there's another Jacob Van Ruin, who's another one that we've sort of been pretty keen on. So this goes to that conversation that Jack has mentioned about we're trying to trade out our first round pick to get back into the draft. Now, we had a bit of a stab at this, didn't we?
Well,
and we wondered if
we've guessed.
We wondered if Richmond, who were really curious about what they're doing with because they picked a 32-year-old
Robbie Tarrant.
How old? 32 or 33?
32.
Yeah.
But it's obvious what they're doing there. They're pushing for one last tilt at a flag. That's fine. I've got no issues.
But then they've got like 6 picks.
Then they're fine for 5 years' time. Like, it's not a bad position to be in.
Yeah, fair enough. I wondered if they might trade out, say, a couple. They're 24, 26. I think they got picked somewhere around like that. What have they got? Something like...
they had like 26, 27, 28 or something.
Yeah,
because they traded with Collingwood today.
Oh, that's interesting. It's not showing them. They've got 25 and 43. Have they traded them on again?
Might not have been.
Hey, we got 29.
What?
We've got pick 29.
Is there something happening that
this is live, people? Live.
Oh my god, we actually have 29. What the hell?
How's the provision draft guru know that? Are you seeing it anywhere else, or?
I've just looked at the AFL website to see if there was a trade. It can't be compensation for anything.
No, but if you look at Richmond have got 19, 25, 43. They've all of a sudden lost something. This is live, people. This is exciting. Well, this is what I was going to suggest, that we might trade out our future first round pick for an early second round pick to try and get into some of these kids that they rate.
Sorry, I'm just furiously trying to find some information on this. So Richmond,
I don't know if that's...
had 7, 15, 26, 27, 28. So 29 was never theirs.
Okay. Who had 29?
West Coast. West Coast had it, according to the AFL website. West Coast had pick 29.
But West Coast have 28. We're going to have to chase this up, people, but this is exciting. I wonder if we're still building up, trying to get lower into those 20s, like using 29 now and a future first round to get into it. I don't know how we've got 29, though, if we've used a future first round or a future second round to get to it. What? What are your thoughts, Sam? Speak. Don't be shy. Don't leave me all just saying stuff.
So on Draft Guru, sorry, people, we've gone off on a massive tangent here. If you look at the full draft order, if you scroll down, pick 11 says round 1 pick for 8th place. If you scroll down to pick 29, it says round 2 pick for 8th place. So that don't have any information. It's just either their website's stuffed up.
But this wasn't like this last week. I remember looking at it several times.
No, it wasn't. But anyway, we'll have to come back to that.
Well, yeah, we'll have to come back to that. But I still think that we're trying to get into those.
Yeah, definitely.
Between pick 16 and pick 20, sort of 8, is where we're trying to get into the draft again.
We kind of guessed that we might be trading a future first on the assumption it's going to be around pick 8 to 12 for a pick 15 or 16, 17 this year. So a club can improve their draft hand next year on a gamble that we're not going to improve. And if we do by much, it'd be roughly the same or worse.
We're not going to be better than 7th, but we shouldn't be any worse than, say, 5th, bottom 5.
Yeah,
that's where I would push us next year.
We're not going to improve drastically and end up pick 18. Like,
we're not going to win the flag with 12 years.
Not going to happen. Yeah. that was kind of how I saw it. But it will be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the trading of picks, because it seems to be that this year's draft is a much better draft and next year's might not be quite so strong. So then that's why you're quite comfortable for us to trade out next year's first.
Yeah.
A better pick next year
because
for
of the
a lower
Davey
pick this, or a higher pick, I guess, whichever way you look at it. A worse
and
pick.
because of the Davey kid coming next year, he's going to be someone we'll bid on. So it doesn't really matter what draft pick we have. Will you be, that's where we'll be.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that's interesting. We have been going now for 40 minutes, so we might just wrap it up.
The last thing I'll just say about the draft is I'd love it if we picked young Tex Wanganeen up in one of those 50 picks that we've got. I know I've heard great things about him. I loved his dad.
And I made a comment to you last week about not picking these guys just because they're Essendon names, but you seem to think that we have a good record of hiding kids like this talent, so other clubs don't.
Well, we've had a history of doing it.
On it.
I know, it's good.
Which is interesting. So I think the most exciting ones are the Davey twins. And I watched if you haven't, watch some highlights of Alwyn Davey. I had no idea really that he was as freakish and as good as he was. I remembered him being...
You remember him after the knee operation, which slowed him down a bit. Whereas before the knee operation, he was very, very good.
Yeah. All right. Get in the comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know if we missed anyone you might think's worth picking up as a Delisted free agent. Let us know if you know how we got pick 29 according to Draft Guru.
Yeah. Let us know if we're drunk and we can't, something's changed in the world.
If anything happens that's really exciting, we might do another podcast after the draft. If pick 11 stays pick 11 and that's it, then it might not be really worth chatting again.
One player.
But if not, we'll be back probably February next year, I reckon, to talk about our best 22. We aim to be back on all of your sort of podcast mediums, Spotify, Apple, and all that. So keep an eye out. This is where you need to say something, Nathan.
Oh, sorry. It's just you were doing so well, Sam. Look, we'll be back next year, bigger and better and badder, and with the opportunity to win T-shirts.
We haven't talked about that. Don't quote us.
I just love to stress Sam out.
I don't like over-promising, under-delivering. I under-promise and over-deliver.
That's life, buddy.
My avenue. All right. Good chat. We'll talk to you next year, probably.
See you, Sammy.
Bye.
Go Bombers.